Welcome to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. This podcast is for those who seek answers from above, guidance and magical inspiration.
Immerse yourself in the realms of magic, angels, fairies, unicorns, dragons, and so much more. I'm Kirsty Jandrell, and I'm delighted to be here with you today.
And I am Kate Latchfeld. Hello and welcome back, loves, to the Angels, Magic and Joy podcast. And Kate and I are thrilled today to welcome the beautiful soul that is Elilzabeth Brett. Welcome, Elilzabeth.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a joy to get to be here with both of you.
Oh, thank you. And we've been waiting a while to invite you on, so it's so beautiful to be together and that we've all trusted in divine timing. So, and Elilzabeth is many things. She's a modern day archetypal priestess. She's a sacred ceremonialist. She herself is a podcaster. She's a soul alchemy mentor, amongst many, many other things and gifts that she's bringing into the world. So Elilzabeth, welcome, my love. We're just so delighted to have you. And I wondered if we could just start by just really diving into your journey, which is such a fascinating one. Really, your journey into the sacred world of ceremonial, sacred space, and how you moved from being a TV news reporter for NBC to becoming a modern day priestess. Could you talk into that, please?
My goodness.
Quite a trip.
It's such a fascinating journey. It really, if I could distill it down, it really is the journey from living the life that I felt like I was supposed to be living, that I was expected to live, the journey that, I had worked my whole life to check off the boxes of, only to arrive there and realize that it actually wasn't what my soul wanted. And I spent 10 years unraveling that, and the stories, the expectations, the way of living. I worked so hard to get to a top 10 market, and there were so many things I loved about news. I loved sharing people's stories and being really in the experience with them and the interviews. And there was so much that I didn't love, like the hustle culture and always being in trauma with people and really meeting them at their worst moments. And then sharing that with the world, even though there were beautiful stories and beautiful people in it with me. And I was incredibly well supported in each market I was in. But there was just a deeper knowing. At some point, I woke up and went, is it worth it? And I had asked myself that consistently for years. And I wasn't able to be fully honest until, I was in my early 30s, and I was like, you know what? It's not worth it anymore. I have gotten to all these layers of success. I have seen, myself grow in all of these beautiful ways. And yet, when I wake up in the morning and I know what I need to go and do, I see the path that I'm supposed to take, but it's not worth it anymore to me. And so leaving that was the first decision where I really trusted my instincts over my mind. It was not the logical choice. And it felt so, can we swear? Is this a podcast? Okay. It felt so fucking good to do that. And I had no other experience in my life that was that dramatic of a shift. And once I got a taste of that, then I just kept recognizing ways that I could, lean into my inner knowing, even though I didn't really have the language for it yet. I just knew there was either the path I was supposed to take and the way I was supposed to do things, or there was this own internal compass that I could follow. And I kept choosing that over and over until I found my way into the sacred feminine, into a temple space for the first time with our beloved Kirsty and I share a beloved mentor, Kalila. Um, and the first experience there was this deep remembrance. It was this visceral experience of, I have been here before, even though I'd never in my lifetime been in a sacred space like this. But it was like my whole body came online in a way that it never had in any other kind of experience. And again, it was this like, oh shit, here we go. Like, I don't know what, I don't know where this is going, but I know that my soul longs for more of it. And so that is how I ended up on this path.
Oh, I love that, Elizabeth. I wonder, before we move into more, ceremonial space, I wonder, that transition that you went through, that kind of, I believe, kind of the knowing is always there. And you said being honest with myself and, following the truth. I wonder, what would you say is the key ingredient to that? Because we have loads of those people at the moment kind of in that transition, that they're kind of, they have that in their compass. Would you say maybe that it's not only admitting to that, but maybe having the courage to admit, to follow the truth, to follow the inner light? Or what would you say, what would be one or maybe many key ingredients that would cause that transition, that yes, I'm here, I am, I'm following my light, I am following my truth? Would you say it's courage? What would it be, the key ingredient?
Yeah, oh, I love that question. So I would say for me, the first thing that was required was being open to other possibilities, not being so stuck on this is my path, right? I'm going to be a top 10 reporter and then I'm going to go national and I'm going to do this. I had this life trajectory. So the first step for me was being open to, maybe it's not so fixed. Maybe the things I think are inevitable aren't inevitable. And so that's the first ingredient of being willing to question what you think is the way your life is going to go. And then for me, it was a lot about being open. I had really trained myself to be very disconnected from my body, as so many women do. And as is culturally the norm, we train ourselves out of our instinctual knowing, out of that ability to really listen. And so it was an opening to even being willing to listen and not even really have to know what that was or where I was hearing it from. And then yeah, it's the I don't know that I would have named it as courage at the time. It was just a willingness to take the step. And I feel like every time I get to that kind of, because I just had another one 18 months ago that we can totally talk about, but it was just that willingness to take the first step in that direction without having to have a clear picture of where it will all lead. And I know both of you have spoken to this. I get to hear your beautiful first episode, that your journey has been that too. It's like you like the audacity almost to say, I'm just going to take this step without having it all figured out. That's what I would say. For me,
And
it's been.
now you have others in the ceremonial space to make those shifts. Kirsty, would you like to add something to that? I just wanted to firstly celebrate that taking that first step, because
Yeah.
I, I just feel that there are so many women at that point at the moment where
Mm-hmm.
they're on that, at that watershed moment also. And I think to hear
Yeah.
you talk into that and describe just that, how simple it can actually be. And we all know it's not viscerally that simple, but it's just a matter of trust and surrender, and that is so much the divine feminine way as well, isn't it? And it's feeling into those feminine energies. So I just wanted to celebrate and say, if you're on that point, take that first step, because that's all we need to know, isn't it? And I just think that's so beautiful. So thank you.
Yeah, and I feel like it can be really overwhelming if we go beyond that very simple, because then we start thinking about, well, where is this going to lead? What is this going to mean for the rest of my life? Like, how am I going to blow everything up? Is it going to, like, does everything have to shift in the next 3 months? And we can get really in our heads about it. But that's where I do feel like that simplicity and that surrender come in, because it can be that easy as saying, what is the next step that feels so good to me? That feels so juicy, and just starting there and really allowing that simplicity to hold you.
And you hold it for yourself, Elizabeth, but also for others to make that shift in the ceremonial space. So I'd like to, dive in to the ceremonial space, the process of ceremony. If you could talk to us more about the process, how it has changed your life, how you're sharing that with others, and also adding to that, I like to play a little game with people when we discuss something, to define what is the definition of ceremony for you. How would you describe it?
I would say ceremony is intentional, sacred space that is curated with a specific purpose in mind. So when I create a ceremonial space, it always has a beginning, a middle, and an end, but it also is curated to be a very high integrity, safe space to hold people. And the goal there is very different than your average gathering, right? It is alchemical. We are going to go through a process of transformation. So for me, that's the definition of ceremony. And, I will be the first to admit that I had tried a lot of different things. I love personal development. I love knowing about myself. And so I'm a huge fan of therapy, love my therapist. Huge fan of, trying on these different, like any kind of personality tests. I mean, angel quiz, like fairy quiz, whatever it is. Like, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. I want to know all of it. Like, what am I most aligned with? And doing different courses and getting to know myself in different ways. But the thing that was so fascinating to me about, that first ceremony I was in, not only was it like that deep remembrance of I have been here before, but it was also I had never been in an experience where it so much could shift so quickly in terms of old patterns that I held to be true about myself, old stories that were there. So, for example, in the way that I perceived my ability to receive love, let's just use that as an example. Maybe there was a part of that I had never actually looked at in the way we were looking at it. But what also could occur in ceremony is I could completely revolutionize that relationship in 1 2 hour ceremony. And then, have that experience in ceremony, but then the practice, the initiation of it, the process of bringing that into my life happened in the everyday. So that's one of the beautiful things about the way that I hold ceremony, is that this is not just something like you go feel good for a couple of hours and then you go about your life until the next one. The real work and the real beauty of the work for me is that we get to bring, like, ceremony is the practice ground for life. We learn something there, and then life gets to initiate us in that learning. So we are given this opportunity to then go practice receiving love in that new way in all of our relationships, right? And that's just one example, but to just really share that, I think for me, that is one of the most powerful parts of it.
So when can I come to the next one, please? I'm going to book my plane ticket.
Yes. Well,
Oh,
and what's so fascinating, Kirsty, is I did start doing all in person here. I'm in Austin, Texas, and I started doing in person because that was something that I couldn't find locally.
yeah.
You know, I had gone to California for ceremonies. Actually, just did that again recently, a couple weeks ago. And but in Austin, I couldn't find anything like what I was looking for, and so that was really what again that trust, that step, that trust fall into me offering was really just me wanting to deepen and have space here in Austin. But I have started offering online, and I really didn't know that I ever would. But again, sometimes we get these initiations that we aren't expecting, and one of the things this winter was for me to be able to offer space that was online, that was uniquely my own, and that started with a podcast. And then I've been creating space in other ways. So a summit, a course, and now I will be doing actually a summer series where I have 3 beautiful online ceremonies. So the first one is called Savor, the second one is called Crave, and the third is called Burn. And they're all these different, really summer focused energies, but they allow us to slow down, to really be in the moment. You know, we're redefining presence in a really juicy, fun way through the senses, or we're looking at desires as no longer being dangerous, but actually being like divinely inspired and placed on the altar of our hearts as a opportunity to get more aligned with our soul's journey, right? Like reframing things, reclaiming things, and releasing old stories. So there actually are ways that I was feeling called to be able to not just do it in Austin, you know, and I'm really excited about that.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Well, we will definitely put those details, Elizabeth, because that sounds, and I know the potency of the space that you hold, and I just, yeah, I just want to honor that because you know, they're two very different
Mhm.
ways of working, but none
Yeah.
less impactful, and you know, I really just wanted to sort of say thank you for explaining ceremony in such a beautiful way, because that it is indeed how I've experienced it and how I experienced it with Elaine, you know, the first time in an
Mhm.
actual physical temple. And my life changed literally within
Yeah.
weeks,
Mhm.
you know, 360, and it's beautiful. And I know Kate's had the pleasure also of being in an anointing temple with Elaine, so yeah, and it's yes, if you're wondering, if you're ceremonially curious, step in.
I love that, ceremonially curious. I love it.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. That's beautiful. So you just teased us with the talking into the your podcast, which is so beautifully entitled Sacred and Sovereign. And it's just a gorgeous offering, and I've experienced many episodes, and I just love the you know, as you was talking about earlier, stepping into the reclamation of power in a very different way, perhaps the way we've been taught that power is wielded, for want of a better word. So I would love for you to tell us more, please, about the podcast and crucially about the importance of the concept of being sovereign, each and every one of us. Why to you is that so important, Elizabeth, at this transformative
Oh,
time in humanity. I wonder if you could talk into
oh, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. Well,
that.
again, such a
Big
great
question,
question.
sorry.
Okay. Um, so let's start with sovereign because I feel like that is the most important conversation we can be having right now. I feel like at this time in history, maybe more than ever, we are definitely inundated with more information than we ever have been as human beings. There's more coming at us. There are, if we have a symptom, we can search and find 100 different solutions for it. And that's like that in every area of our lives. And so it feels with so much noise around us, just crucial for us to not only have a really solid sense of who we are, which I feel like a lot of that work, that deep trust in self and deep knowledge of self is not often prioritized. But I also feel like for us to be able to know what self integrity even is right now is so important. With so many experts, so many, opinions, so much, even at school drop off now, the dialogue can be incredibly dynamic. And it's like for us to be able to have an internal ability to know this is where I stand. This is what integrity feels like to me, to then be able to create our world, our lives, our choices from that place of self integrity feels to me to be the most important work we can be doing. And it not only impacts us, because as women, we are the foundation, not only for our families, but for communities. And so our ability to do that within ourselves, to know what choice that we are always in choice, to know what choices we are making consciously. So to no longer unconsciously make choices, but to consciously be making choices to create our own lives and therefore our community and broadening out, like recognizing how much impact we have not only on our children, not only in our partnerships, not only in our wider families, but in our bigger communities, and to be able to be that lighthouse now more than ever, that is what's needed. So that's where sovereignty really comes in for me. And to me, it is that ability to recognize where you're being offered rules and whether or not, those align with you, knowing when you're choosing to rewrite the rules on your own terms, knowing when you're choosing to, step in and move forward with other people's rules because they align with yours, right? And really just having that discernment, that ability to discern. And interestingly, the podcast, that title just came even before I realized how much sovereignty would be part of that conversation. It was just, for me, a reclamation of my voice. I had only ever used my voice publicly in that way when I was in TV news, when I was reporting. And so for me to then say, I'm going to create a space where I can come and I can be real about whatever initiations I'm experiencing, whatever's real in my world. I can name it, we can talk about it, but also bring in like beautiful people to understand their perspectives on what they are seeing is, the most essential piece of creating a sacred life, of owning their own sovereignty, and then really getting to allow it to develop and to become whatever it wants to be. So I have with my business and with my podcast, it's sort of like an animist relationship with it, where I believe it's its own being. And so it gets to become like we're co-creating. So this podcast is its own thing. And I just get to bring my voice to it and see what wants to come through every week. And, be very open to, again, not having that fixed point of this is where we're going, but very open to the um, ability to just be present to how it wants to evolve. And so it's been a really beautiful experiment for me. I have found so many initiations still happening in getting to own my voice, getting to share in this way. It's very intimate for me. I actually keep it just audio because that always for me was a more intimate way to share. I would be a radio guest a lot when I was in TV, and it always just was this very safe space. And so I do that, to keep it really real and really safe. And just, it's been so much fun to be able to explore different aspects of sovereignty or different aspects of sacred living, and to do interviews again. I love interviewing people, and I just didn't have a way to do that before that felt like really consistent, and like I got to really curate. And so it's just a beautiful all around. I'm in love with it, basically.
Oh, I love that. And I find just voice also very intimate. I don't know what it's about, but it's also, I feel the
Yeah.
same. It's like I'll be almost sitting next to that person. They will be almost next to my ear. I love that.
Yeah.
But I feel also, with the knowing and aligning to that and creating the space for that exploration, strongly intertwining the sense of power. And what I like kind of in English, in Polish, we have two different words, both meaning power, but one would be describing the power as the dominance, as the kind of the toxic one, as the traditional patriarchal one, which is the other one. The power means, the power from within. And we have two different words, which I absolutely love.
Oh,
And
I
I
love
like that
that.
in English. Okay. So I would like to touch on that. So when you use different one, you know exactly which power you're talking about, which the other one would be, the sense of leadership from within that spreads around and guides others as we just shine our lights, right? So I would like to tap into that a bit, Elizabeth, on your view on that, the understanding of power and what this means, and, the new understanding of power, really. And can you talk about how this new definition of the personal power is crucial for us as individuals? And how this affects, the collective, and how this power differ, historically from the other one that will be known for us, and very often, I suppose, misunderstood as well. I suppose we have so many new meanings of the words. That's why I love playing with the words, because I feel like there's so much misunderstanding. One would be speaking about, let's say, let's say a simple setting boundaries, and the other person would understand it completely differently, and the disharmony comes in, and the disconnection, which basically we're always talking about the same thing at the end of the day, right? But I wonder what's your view on that, the definition of power and how it affects us as individuals, as collective.
First of all, wow, I love that Polish has two words. That is so powerful. I'm a word nerd, and I love the English language because it's so fascinating to me. But yeah, we don't have a second word for that. How I distinguish it, and I'd be curious for you, Kirsty, because we've both studied in the 13 Moon Mystery School, which is where a lot of my training comes from. But for me, I've distinguished it between power. When I just talk about power, it's typically that toxic version of dominant, power over, right? And that need to prove that you're powerful, power that can be taken away, power that's given, and when I speak of the other power, the power from within, that to me is authentic power. So authentic power is the power that can never be given or taken. It is always within you. It is, and it is not sourced from without, right? So there is no need to prove anything. There is no need to say, like, I am powerful. You simply are. And it's a very different frequency. But yes, we don't have a specific word for that other than what I would call authentic power. And it distinguishes itself so differently from the other simply in the way that it's experienced. And so this for me is, you know, there's the power that you feel like you have to grab or compete for, and that is the toxic. But there's the power that you simply remember that is already within you, and you simply get to rediscover it and feel it in every cell of your body. And that is not, they're totally separate things, right? And so the power that simply exists in your cells is that authentic power, is that one that we're really talking about when we're talking about cultivating personal power. For me, that's what ties into sovereignty. So for me, the power is that experience of feeling it in your cells. And I actually have a beautiful meditation where I wake up power in every cell of the body. So because oftentimes, especially as women, we are so used to shrinking. We are so used to not actually turning our power all the way on out of fear of what will happen if we are our biggest selves, right? Or fear that we don't know how to handle all of that power. But it's just like, this is what came to me is, it's just like my daughter was 11 pounds 4 ounces and I had her at home. And when I was pregnant with her, my midwife said to me, your body will not create a baby that is too big for you to birth. It is biologically not going to do that, right? And it's the same with our power. Our power is uniquely ours. And when it is turned all the way on, it can feel really disorienting at first because we have been taught our whole lives not to stand and take up that much space and be that powerful. But actually, it is truly how we're meant to experience the world. And one of the big gifts that I have is to be able to hold space for all of that bigness, right? For that fullness. What I find when women experience that for the first time in a safe space where they are held in it, and that's the beauty of ceremony. But when they are truly held in their fullest version of self, the fear, it's like it disintegrates because they recognize, oh, of course I am this powerful. Of course it can be turned on in every cell of my body. And this is how I will move differently through the world. And this is how, I can take on that queen-like energy as I move through my morning routine with my children, as I, whatever it is I'm doing, take another trip to the grocery store, or I get to, lead my next meeting at work, whatever it is, once we feel it in ourselves. And that's one of the beautiful things about the alchemy work is it's so embodied, right? Once you've felt it in your cells, it's something you can return to every time. So for me, there is a real beauty in understanding what power is, not in the way that we've made it in this toxic, masculine, patriarchal society, but in the way it was intentioned, the way the ancients understood it thousands of years ago, and that we can so easily return to that. It's such a beautiful experience of it. And then to say, okay, now sovereignty is how I choose to use that. Power is the actual feeling in my body. Sovereignty is the way I bring it into my life.
Oh, that's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you for that embodied explanation. I mean, as you were talking, I could feel, the the space, and I totally agree, as women, and I think sadly men too now,
Yeah.
are so disconnected from how it really feels to have that awareness running through the whole body, that it's so easy to give that power away to whatever, to
Mhm.
what we've got so many options to give our power away these days, but that remembrance, so the interplay between sovereignty, remembrance, talked about the ancients, and it straight away as you were talking, I was thinking of us, living in the forests, but having that, be really embodying the power that it means to have both of those energies within us,
Mhm.
and for the men to have that too. And I truly think we're moving towards that. So thank you for playing such a beautiful, not playing a part, but bringing that through in such a full and loving way into the world,
Mhm.
Elizabeth. Honestly, it's, yeah,
Mhm.
goosebumps and shivers and all of that. Those.
and and really for the men, I just feel what's so
Mm.
beautiful. I feel like for all of us right now is we're creating something that we've never seen. Most men have never actually seen noble masculine energy. It's so rare. And so they're also, just like we're reclaiming the sacred feminine or divine feminine energy, they're reclaiming this noble, sacred masculine energy. And, we're all doing something we have never seen before. We remember it in our DNA, from our ancestors, but we have never actually like witnessed it. It's not how I grew up. It's not how, it just wasn't the norm. And so I just feel like we need to be so gentle with ourselves as we do this work, because we are unshackling from thousands of years of these stories and these ways of being that no longer serve anyone. We're all recognizing it, men and women. And what we get to create is amazing, and it's all very, very innovative and new for so many of us. So I just, my heart wants to open and just hold all of that, because it's such beautiful work. It's not easy work. It's very uncomfortable, and it's a lot of patience and a lot of willingness to really, again, go into that trust, go into that surrender to knowing that it's possible, and just doing the best we can in any given moment.
Exactly. So beautiful. Yeah, that and we are, and it's so, I mean, how exciting. We were talking briefly, weren't we, before we came on, saying what, wow, we get to be here now and co-create this amazing future. And yeah, we're here for it. We're doing the work, and what an absolute gift of an opportunity. So
Totally.
yeah, thank you, my love. Oh, I feel like
Mhm.
we took on that theme for hours, but we must pass on. You'll have to come back and do a second episode, my love.
Of course, I would love
Oh,
to.
you talked about just what we were, the archetypal understandings that we were born
Mhm.
into, the energy, the frameworks that we were born into. And of course, we're in a very, very different platform now. And I just wanted you to sort of nod this this bow really to you, as really, to me, you embody both of these energies so beautifully within yourself, this sacred union. And I really feel that every time I meet you, and I think you radiate that, and that's a beautiful, beautiful permission and example for others to sort of to follow. But you're both a successful entrepreneur. You've started your own business, and I know you're such a devoted mother. And I just wondered how you manage. It's the age-old question, isn't it? How do we manage to
Yeah.
balance? And I just wondered, do you have any little nuggets, my love, of inspiration for our audience that you would love to share? Because you do it with such grace. And
Mm.
yeah.
Well, thank you. It's very messy in my home, by the way. So I love that it appears graceful, but there's a
It
lot that's,
does.
I would say, well, first piece of it, the thing that I have been really playing with this year, that's been very exciting to me, is the practice of being fully present in whatever I'm doing. And so I used to really try to have specific hours that were work and specific hours that were family. And I was really, really determined to have, my days very neatly put together. And then in January, there was a lot. This winter really had a lot of shakeups, and I recognized that I was trying to create this linear thing out of something that was not linear. And so instead of trying to be so compartmentalized about it, what would it look like if I allowed it all to braid together and to be more like, you know, just truly bringing in more of that feminine fluidity and saying, okay, can I, be with whatever is right in front of me and be there fully. And then if that means that I am hopping and skipping back and forth, 8 times in a day between roles and between, can I simply be where I am and not need for it to look so neat? And because pre-kids it was very easy to have work and then my workout and then like it was such a simpler formula, and that's been really beautiful for me. It's given me a lot of permission to allow it to flow, and there's been less frustration with, okay, I need to spend more time on this. But I do feel like, and I just want to name that this is an ongoing initiation. You know, motherhood in so many ways is such a deep initiation. And this is not something that I feel like I've quote unquote figured out. I don't know that I don't know that I believe I'll get to the point where I've figured it out. I feel like we're always simply allowing ourselves to be stretched and to learn new skills and to deepen in certain ways. But, some of the things that I've found is when I get too focused on business. So I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I am on Instagram for work, but I really don't like it because it then takes over my life. I have a very addictive personality. So I'll start to notice I'm scrolling for no reason, and especially when I'm around my kids, because they're now 8 and 10, so they're in school, and so if I pick them up, and I have really become aware of how can I be more present with them and enjoy the time that we have. And so one of the really simple things that I love doing now is putting my phone away, not even having it nearby and turned over, but literally having a place, in the other room where it's not even around me. Unless there's an emergency, I don't actually need it. Remember the time where we didn't have cell phones? It wasn't that long ago. But the simplicity and beauty of that, and really getting good at saying, I want to be very intentional with this time because man, as slow as it seemed to go at first, the kids are already 8 and 10. You know, they're not going to be here with me in my home for that much longer. So, how can I be as intentional with that time as possible? And so that, you know, again, it's an ongoing journey here. It's not a perfect rhythm by any means, but those are a couple of the little things that have really been helping me lately.
I love that. I'm gonna apply that even deeper in my own practice with my kids, and it's so true. And I often wonder, sometimes you message someone, and some people actually always respond, and sometimes, for me personally, it would take even a few days. And I suppose, really allowing ourselves. It doesn't have to be always instant. It doesn't have to be always. I feel like that message needs to be there because it's that expectation, because we have this instant gratification everywhere all the time, and it's absolutely fine. And I have that understanding from others when we don't. And I have some of the friends that we don't even say, sorry, I didn't reply for 3 weeks. It's like, it's so obvious that we just reply whenever we can. And we're just, is that, I love friends that they're completely vibing in the same frequency. They totally get it. And it's it flows even better. And I've noticed it actually flows even better when we allow this. It's a completely different organizing scale, organizing self in the feminine way rather than the masculine. But it's so beautiful. I love that. And it gives you so much beauty of the moment as well, which is when the mind kicks in and is so structured, can so easily, not notice. And all the magic. And speaking of magic, Elizabeth, this is one of our favorite questions, and I wish we could actually talk a few hours because I'm sure, and you've already kind of give us a bit of hooks and nuggets. I've noticed that. Okay, Elizabeth, so I'm gonna pull that thread of magic happening in your life, the situations that made you become who you are right now. You've mentioned something in January, you've mentioned the winter, you've mentioned pieces along your timeline. So if you would like to share with us your most magical or angelic or joyous moment or moments that come to your mind, because I always love stories, because through the stories we can intertwine so much of our frequency, of our wisdom, or whatever you want to call it. And so I'm just so curious of yours, and I wish we could have like maybe 10 or 12 hours so I could hear all your stories, or at least some of your stories. This is my favorite. Okay, I'm biased, this is my favorite one. So please, Elizabeth, can you just give it all to us, like within one
Yes.
whatever comes to you.
Well, the first, this is such a good question. Yes, we could just talk about this only for days. The first thing that comes up for me was something I did mention, which I said it happened 18 months ago, but it's almost 2 years ago now. And I will just set the stage by saying the ocean has always, the ocean was the first love I had of nature that really allowed me to feel held. I love her so much. So I've always called her Mama Ocean. And I used to go sit, even as a kid, as a teenager, I would go sit with my toes in the sand and, just share my dreams. And, I would, I really believed that the ocean could not only absorb and hold any dreams, they couldn't be too big for her, but also I would cry my salty tears into her, and I would just, release everything and know that she could hold that too. And so I've always had this real communion with the ocean, this real tie. And I had no idea 2 years ago that she was going to be such an initiator for me, that I was there in the summer, the place where I'd gone my whole life. And now my daughter and my son, they both also love the ocean like I do, and the sand, and it's so beautiful. It's like a shared altar between us. And I was there with my daughter, the part of the East Coast that we go to, it is, that velvety smooth sand, those big dunes, and the water itself it's pretty unpredictable. So it changes really quickly. These are not small waves, and but I've been swimming there since I was a kid, and I was swimming with my daughter. My cousin and my son had also been out with us, but they'd gone back to shore. And I realized, after we'd been swimming a while, it was like this day like any other, not a big, nothing like major was going on in the water. But I noticed the ocean starting to change, and there were more waves starting to come. And I looked at my daughter. We went under a couple waves. We were pretty far out. And I realized, looking at her, she was starting to get tired. She probably weighed about 60 pounds at the time, right? And so there wasn't a break. So I kept, thinking, okay, I've got to find the break. Like, that was the first thing, was I've got to find where there's enough break in the waves for us to get back to where I could touch bottom. And another couple of waves came in. And she started to, pull down on my shoulder. And I realized that she couldn't hold herself up anymore. And so now I was swimming, going under waves and coming back up, but I was bringing 60 pounds with me each time. And I started to calculate how many more times I could do this, right? Realizing that I was running out of strength. And another couple of waves happened, and they were just rolling in. It wasn't like sets of three, they were just rolling in. And I remember looking at her face and seeing, because she was usually never scared when she was with me, but I saw in her eyes, like, she was aware that this was scary. And at some point, I let out this kind of primal scream, and I screamed for my cousin, who magically, and this is where the magic comes in, he was close enough. He was there. He hadn't gone back to where we started. It was a pretty strong current that day. So he was still there with my son, close enough. And he was somehow able to get out to us, and I was able to hand her off. And I remember I was fighting. Every ounce of my being was fighting, just determined. Like, I knew that there was no option. It didn't matter that my muscles were screaming. Like, I knew there was no option but for me to get her to safety. And I remember the handoff, and I remember hearing him say something like, "I got you, Grace, you're okay." And I knew in my mama heart that I had done everything that I needed to do. And it was like, as hard as I had been fighting, that moment after I released her to him, I realized I had nothing left, nothing. That every ounce of strength I had used to get her there, and I still couldn't touch. And I still had to figure out how to get myself in. But in that instant, it was like something came over me that was beyond peace. It was like bliss. And I knew that no matter what, it was all perfect and it would all be okay. And I said to the ocean, "Take me home." And in that moment, I really didn't know if that meant, I actually didn't have attachment to whether or not that meant I would make it back to shore or I wouldn't. All I knew was I had to surrender. And I surrendered more fully than I ever had. And I honestly don't know what happened in the next few minutes. I don't even know how long it took, but I remember crawling hands and knees onto the sand out of the water. And I remember turning back around once I knew like I was on like enough sand that I could just sit. And I didn't have words, but I turned back and I just looked at the ocean. And I recognized in that moment that the woman who went into the water was gone. And the woman who had come out and had this experience was a whole new version of me. And that it would take me weeks and months to learn her. But that there was a new level of trust. There was a new desire to stop hiding and a new knowing that it was this mantra again, I know who I am. I know what I'm here to do. I have been waiting for this moment for lifetimes. It's come up in different ways since then, but that was the core of it. So I was supposed to go back to school in 2 weeks. I was for a degree in marriage and family therapy. That disintegrated. And in a couple of hours, not even a week later, I put together a website where I came out of the closet as a priestess. And that was the starting point of me actually stepping into my sacred work.
Oof, my goodness. I have no words. That was, oh, I mean, if any story encapsulates the power of a mother's love and the power of meeting your higher self in such extremis, I mean, oh, love. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, to be able to bring that new version of you into this work that you're bringing into the world is just beautiful. I'm so glad to hear your daughter. I mean, I was just feeling it. We're all mothers, and gosh, I'm sure everybody that listens to that will just, oh, beautiful. Oh, what an initiation and
Yeah.
a true gift, because it's brought you into this work
Yeah.
that
And
you.
the truth is, we're always going through these rebirths,
Yeah.
whether or not they are that, experiential,
Mm.
or we just are recognizing there are parts of us that are ready to die and parts of us that are ready to be birthed anew. That is the work of a priestess. That is the work of a sacred path. And so for me, it was this recognition of my path, that this process of life, death, rebirth was the gift, and that I would get to keep unpacking that cycle in my life from now until the end of my days. And we all have that. We all have that in our lives in various ways.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's quite a dramatic example that you were given, but yeah, it's absolutely true. And this is, as you say, this is I totally agree. It's the path of the priestess. It's a deep excavation every day and an opportunity to yeah, to keep uncovering these golden pieces of yourself that we've forgotten ever
Yeah. Yeah.
existed, So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, thank you, my love. And that
Mm-hmm.
beautifully segues into talking about your beautiful, beautiful quiz, which I know you're really excited about. I've taken it as well, and I know it's an absolute labor of love. It's such a beautiful way, I feel, that people can, we talked about quizzes and, alchemical types and things before and archetypes and but this feels I know it feels like a deep excavation and revelation of the essence, and I just wanted to sort of celebrate it. It's called Soul Code, your Code. Can you sort of talk into how it came about? And I know it took a long time. It was, as I say, a labor of love. So we will of course share it with everybody after. But
Yes,
yeah, I'd love
yeah.
to hear it because quizzes fascinate me. I know what a process it
Yeah.
is.
Yes, yes, you do. Yeah, so I've really been interested with this question. Who were you before the world told you who to be? Right? Because really, in ceremony, in a lot of personal development, I remember saying to, it might have been a therapist once, man, if we could just skip over the middle part, if we could just go like from kid to now, it would be so much easier because I feel like what we do is we come out knowing who we are, then we build up all these ways to fit into whatever mold we think we're supposed to fit into. And then we spend the second half of our lives trying to take all of that back down to get back to this who were we? Right. And so it's like, could we just skip that whole center part and just keep like that essence self the whole time? But that is the human journey, right? It is the recognition that we did come in with so much wisdom, which with so much sense of who we're meant to be. And we often forget because of all of the expectations of daily life and society and culture and all of the ways in which we feel like we have to shapeshift to, play whatever roles we're supposed to play and all of the things. And so this question of who you were before the world told you who to be really is honoring that knowing, honoring that part of self that really didn't look outward yet, really didn't have a need to find an expert to tell them, how to know their purpose, or, needed to fill time with, ways to find their magic because they already had it, right? And so it really came down to what would be a really fun way for us to explore this question of who were we before the world told us who to be. And I felt like building out 5 beautiful archetypes and giving people an experience through the questions of remembrance. So, a lot of that, you've heard me talk about it, empower, and in almost everything that we've talked about, it comes down to remembering, right? It's not this becoming something new, it's remembering. And so I wanted the questions to almost peel back layers and become a practice of remembrance in and of themselves, regardless of the result. And then I felt into like, how do we make these results not just something that you're like, oh, cool, I'm the devoted heart, or oh, cool, I'm the sacred rebel, right? But how do we make them like living, breathing remembrance? And so I then, of course, built a beautiful PDF around them. But then I went into how can we give rituals so that people can really feel this coming alive in them again in their lives. And that became really fun in of itself. So specific rituals for each archetype wanted to emerge because of course it was never going to be simple and I could just make it, more and more elaborate. And so each archetype has its own way of wanting to be awoken. And so there are different rituals for each one. And the beauty in it is that all of it, I often get messages because I have new women taking this quiz every week. And I often get messages of how much it resonates, like whatever answer they got resonates so deeply. And I'd be curious to hear your experience, Kirsty, with that. And the rituals themselves get to become, such a beloved, like it's almost like playing at like, oh, I get to know her again. Right. And I that's the energy I wanted it to happen. um it doesn't have to feel heavy or like I've got to do all this work. It's like, no, let's just play in this space of possibility, of reawakening this part of yourself and getting to feel how we can bring that forward in such a joyful way. So I'd be curious, Kirsty, since you've taken this quiz, if you did feel like your archetype resonated.
Well, you've already mentioned my archetype, which is the devoted heart. And it
Hmm.
really did. Um, yeah, and I think from our work in
Yeah.
the 13 moon, and I guess with the Rose Mystica as well, it's about that. It's about,
Yeah.
to me, it was almost like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay to lead with that open heart. It's okay to see your life as a devotion to you and to all, that the oneness that we are. So it was beautiful. And as you say, we've all taken so many quizzes, but this was the actual process of taking the quiz. Please take it, because the actual process of taking the quiz is such a revelation as you go along, and you actually receive the message, and you're like, yes, well, I knew that from taking the quiz, actually. kind of,
Hmm.
So it's, I
Hmm.
mean, I honor the way. I don't know how you came to sort of, yeah, it must have been a really deep practice to actually create these archetypes, and then having that beautiful ceremonial um offering at the end. Yeah, such a work of love and devotion. Are you the
Thank
devoted heart?
you.
I would like to know what you've got.
Well, it's interesting because as I created them, they were all aspects of self, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I had to really embody each as I was writing it. And so what happened was I thought for sure I was the sacred rebel. And then as I would go into each one, I was like, oh, sovereign queen. And I would really embody that
Yeah.
as I was creating for that. And so now if you ask me, I'm like, I'm all of them, of course, which we
Yes.
all are, which we all are. All or all of them. And there's typically one that leads. So, yes, I would say at the moment, I would say I'm leaning Sovereign Queen.
Yeah, I'm feeling that. And would you encourage people to sort of retake it, sort of maybe every, I don't know, couple of months, just to see? Because things, as you say, we have different dominances in our energies according to where
Yeah,
we are. And
I I do think that it's I would say once a year is really
okay,
great,
yeah,
just to see, because I do think that we can shift. I also think there is typically a home energy for people. There's one that feels like home.
yeah,
There's one that feels really, really good. Um, but for example, in the 13 moons, I would say I'm alchemical, and which is the one that kind of moves between all of them.
yes,
And so I feel like that archetypally is more my home.
yeah,
And then I will, because I'm more archetypally one that like can, I kind of move. I have these
yeah.
beautiful archetypes that I'm pulling from them, that I will have a home in one, and then I will say, okay, now let's see what my home wants to be, and then move to another. So, yes, for me, I definitely feel like yearly is good. It's sort of like taking, I don't know if you ever took, what is that? Myers Briggs, where you're,
Oh, yes.
ENFJ or I. So I would go between INFJ and ENFJ, like, and then I would be an ENF, whatever, judge or feeler, like I don't know, whatever it was, I would just, I'd always have these like variations.
Yeah.
And I just think that that's so interesting, because if, so much of this is about recognizing what we're still owning that's not ours,
Yeah.
and then what's actually ours. And truly, I was an introvert playing an extrovert for most of my life. And so, now I know if I were to take one of those quizzes, I would definitely be an introvert. For a long time, I would go back and forth because I had learned so well how to play the other. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I can really
Mhm.
relate to that. It's, yeah. We do, again, it's about learning those roles, isn't it? And thinking, well,
Mhm.
I have to be extrovert to do my job, and yeah, yeah. So take the quiz, please. We will definitely put that in the show notes. Yes.
Yes, and I love to hear what people are.
Yes.
I actually feel like the devoted heart is perfect for you. I
Right.
totally see that.
Oh,
And I love hearing what results you get. I always say, reply to me and let me know, because I'm
yes.
always curious. It's so fun. Yeah.
Oh, my love. Well, as well as the quiz, which we'll put, what are the best ways for if people want to engage in your online ceremonies, or just
Mhm.
contact you for work, and yeah, what's the best way? We'll put your quiz and your website. Are there any other
Mhm.
ways
Mhm.
that you would love to be contacted, my darling?
I'm on Instagram. You can always DM me on
Hmm.
Instagram. I'm Elizabeth S. Brett. Don't forget the S. And I also, my email list is typically the best way. It's where I release all of my offerings first, and it's where I share more intimately about what's happening in my life. And so that's always the best way to stay connected to me. I'll be sure to give you a way to have a page on my website. We have a page where you can just go and sign up. So I'll share that as well.
Thank you, my love. And a beautiful
Yeah.
website as well, by the way. It's
Thank
gorgeous.
you.
Oh. Well, I think we are we are nearing the end of our beautiful, beautiful gathering today. Honestly, it's been such an honor, and so
Mm.
um inspirational to hear you talk about your work and your passion and your life. And yeah, I'm inspired, and
Mm.
I hope and I'm sure that everybody who listens to this will be. So thank you, thank you, thank you, my love.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh,
It's been such a joy to be here with both of you.
oh, thank you,
Thank
love.
you so much, Elizabeth. It was such a joyful, and I feel like we were traveling through different dimensions in the same time,
Yes.
almost layers. I feel like we've been here a few hours, and I'm just like, oh, I feel like it's, when you get a sense of being in a few different timelines at the same time. So I get that
Yeah.
sense. So I would definitely
Yeah.
listen to it a few times to get more insights, in between the lines. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for
Yeah.
sharing your passion, your joy, and your story, a part of it. And I hope you're gonna share more with us in the future, because
Yes.
I'm not.
Mm.
I'm not okay. I want more. There's
Read the
so
book,
much.
can't
There's
you?
no end to that depth, and I hope we can dive in again together. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Kirsty.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank
loves.
you.
See you everybody soon. Bye.